Hey, everybody, welcome to this month. What the heck? I mean, it's the last one this month. This week's edition of the Marketing Happy Hour, where we give you the news and views that you can use to improve your online marketing. Actually, offline too, come to think of it.
Yep.
One of your hosts, Dr. Christopher Vogelmann of drvogelmann.com, and my new brand that's coming out shortly, Funumental. Know the hashtag, and you'll love it. With me, as always, is our trusty co-host,
John Paduchak with Videos Are Social and our Facebook group online, Local Marketing Strategies. Just a shout out. So
that is a good local marketing strategies. And here from a place that's a little less local than John, from Vancouver, is the silent Kayvon. I think you're muted.
Yep.
There you are.
Yes. Hello, this is Kayvon from Vancouver. It's sunny and nice today, but I think it's a bit chilly. I'm a coach to overworked entrepreneurs to help them become effective and implementers. Simplify.zone is the website.
Yeah, and you'll never be alone with Simplify.zone. Hey, and one of our latecomers to the party.
There he is.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Sorry I'm running a little late tonight. How's everybody doing?
No worries, doing great. Good to have you.
Hello.
We're at the end of our discussion now, so thanks for tuning in.
No, it's your turn. You're on. So
sorry I'm late, guys. Listen, I'm Cam from epicconversions.com and the One Step Away marketing podcast. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. It's always fun hanging out with you guys and doing the Marketing Happy Hour show.
We're doing the happy hour. What's everybody drinking?
A nice, freshly brewed cup of coffee.
Oh, see, that sounds good to me. I have a nice...
I'm doing tea.
You're doing tea? John, whoa. John, what do you have there?
It's a concoction.
A concoction? From Epic Concoctions, John Paduchak.
Epic Concoctions.
I just have water. People may not believe me and think it's vodka because that is my preferred hard liquor, the cleanest of all.
It's moonshine, tell us the truth.
Well, actually, no. Many years ago, I used to take country western dance lessons, and somebody at one of the places had a friend from France who came into town, and they brought in what they called eau de vie, which is the water of life, and it was French moonshine. That stuff was so strong and so smooth, I think it was very dangerous. So,
back in the day, my ancestors were famous for that stuff.
Yeah, eau de vie, the water of life. Hey, speaking of life, and speaking of podcasts, we're talking today about making better connections fast through podcasts. So making podcasts fast. Sorry, I got that mixed up. Podcasts fast for connections that last. And one of our panel members, one of our wonderful co-hosts, happens to be Jennings. Or is it Kam Fats, a.k.a. Kam Jennings? I'm always confused.
Yeah,
about that.
Exactly.
But anyway, you've got your podcast, which is, I think, awesome because we're going to talk about the origins of podcasts, how great they are for making connections, establishing your authority, yada, yada, yada. And you just launched yours not too long ago.
Yeah, I just launched this one January 1st. And I had one before it. And I look at these things like projects. So like that one was going to run 100 episodes and I ran 100 episodes and I took a break and I always knew I was going to come back a few months and do another one. But I just kind of wanted to figure out what it was going to be. And, I just didn't want to repeat myself. So kind of figured it out. And then in the beginning of January, I decided I was going to be coming back on January 1st and do this new one. And this is going to be a whole year. This is my biggest, by far, my most ambitious podcast project ever, just because of the fact that it's a daily podcast. It's going to be 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And it's for the whole year of 2021. So I don't like to think about it. It's just a 1 year project. That's it.
As opposed to a child who's a 20-year project or more.
Yeah, I don't like to commit. I don't like to commit to things like indefinitely. You know what I mean, guys? Yeah. Like I like to put projects into perspective, and then like if I want to move on for a season 2 or whatever, a sequel, then that's totally cool. We can do that. But I like to put end dates on projects just because I don't know. It becomes very demotivating, at least for me, just to say, well, I'm just going to do this indefinitely. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Hey,
I
so
can see that.
so John, have you considered doing a podcast?
This is kind of funny. So over the years, I've coached a lot of people to have some very successful podcasts.
Yeah.
But I've never started one of my own. So I've been thinking this year about doing that. I've got a couple thoughts in mind. One, I think Cam has actually got me thinking about, which is, like my RV adventures. Maybe RV John's adventures.
RV John.
That'd be cool, man. That'd be real cool. I'd listen to it.
I think I'm going to do that. So I haven't decided on the name, but that's kind of like the working name. That's one of them. And then the other one is just like, it's become very imperative, like over this year, a lot of the different business and stuff that we've been talking to locally, they've got all of these different business aspects of things that they're working on that they can't really quite come together with, which is, like business succession. They've got kids. They don't know how to put that in place. They've got assets they don't know how to put together and get more passive income out of. All these different things. And
those are very, very good points, because I was just talking to somebody recently and they were talking about doing geo-targeted podcast for local business marketing. I think that's brilliant. So that you can become a dominant voice. Yeah.
And then, of course, Doc and I have been talking about putting this little gem of ours on the air.
All four of us. I think that this particular program we kind of have gelled. It's taken about a year to do this, though, because John and I started in the pandemic just for if you pardon the expression, shits and giggles, and it just kind of evolved over time. And I think I just like the synergy that we have and the different perspectives that we bring to the table. So I think it's potentially, this material could be put into a podcast quite easily. And it's sort of like, Cam, one of our mutual mentors, Sam Crowley, would say, just sort of grip it and rip it, as opposed to putting too much thought into it. So, So Kayvon, I was going to ask you about podcasting. I know you're working on a book right now in the manuscript section. Would that evolve into a podcast, or will you be doing interviews to promote your book on podcasts?
A few years ago, I used to have a podcast with a friend of mine, and it was just two guys talking on a certain kind of theme, which was the name of the podcast. We called it Happiness Simplified. He brought the happiness, and I brought the simplification. And we had, I don't know, 36 or 37 episodes, and it may be still online somewhere. But yes, my book will eventually end up to be a podcast. So very much like what Cam said, I look at these things as projects, and then they turn into a process, as in it's a project because it has a beginning date and end date, as in I'm going to start the podcast and get it going. And when it's going on, then it becomes a process that you repeat weekly, monthly, or whatever. So yeah, it's going to be, the podcast is going to be called same name as my business, and the book, it's going to be called Simplify with Dr. Kayvon Kay. I'm going to discuss similar topics that we did. I am going over them in the book, and having guests and conversations and that sort of thing. So
there's nothing like bouncing yourself out of your own studio.
What happened there?
I had some notes for today, and I slid them across my keyboard, and as I did so, it hit the touchpad, which sent me out of here. So,
this is gonna be a free throw.
We thought you got bored with Kayvon's talk about his book.
It was a little too.
I've been known for that, so
it was a little too simple.
Scary memories came back.
What?
It was a little too simple
after this session.
We thought we offended you, man.
It was a little too simple. It was a little too simple, so I decided to add a degree of complexity to the broadcast.
Yeah, drama. We can all get
drama.
Some of that, right? Drama.
That's good.
I had a podcast too. So
I don't know if you guys know or not. I work with one of my friends who has a podcast development company, and I guess there are a lot of things that we can discuss. I have a bunch of notes here about the things to consider about starting a podcast and that sort of thing. You have your notes, so
I got notes.
Let's go over them, huh? Sounds good.
I got infographics too.
Yes.
I just finished my 50th episode. It's in the books now. It's not out live yet, but I just wrapped up my 51st episode.
Congratulations.
Step away, and it was basically five takeaways from my last 50 episodes of this podcast. And I was like, okay, well, I did that. What's funny that we're talking about this today because I just did that episode earlier today, and I was like, well, what am I going to do for this show? And I don't know if we're going to use this stuff or not, but I watched, I listen to this radio. I listen to a lot of sports talk radio. I'm a big sports guy, and I listen to a lot of sports talk radio. There's this one show, they have this little segment called Love It, Don't Love It. They say something they love, and then they say something they don't love. I thought, you know what? Let me come up with 3 things I love about podcasts and 3 things I don't love about podcasts. So I got those.
They might be on my list. I think they might be here.
Nice.
What are your 3 things that you love about podcasts?
Before Cam start on that, so for everybody who's listening, creating content and coming up with topics of discussion is as easy as that. You have your 50th episodes, you create 2 lists, love it or don't love it, 3 things or 3 things. I remember I turned 50 last year. So what I did was, which this could have been a podcast, 50 days until my 50th birthday. Every day I recorded a video and put it on social media about 50 lessons that I have learned in life. So there you go. Something like that could be like 50 episodes, short episode, longer episode discussions and that sort of thing. So content, topics, and creations, which is, I guess, something we're going to talk about. It could be as easy as what just Cam did for his podcast.
Sure.
So sorry to interrupt, Cam. So just wanted to highlight your genius.
Dude, oh my goodness, yeah, genius in my own mind with a capital J. but listen, on the back of what you're saying, Kayvon, I think it's so interesting because creativity is such an undervalued skill, right? Everyone is trying to figure out a way that they don't have to be creative, or they're trying to outsource the creativity, or they're trying to just find an easy workaround so they don't have to be creative. People feel like they're not creative. Man, creativity is an undervalued skill. It's worth your time to try to work on developing a little bit of creativity and figuring out, outside the box, lateral thinking kind of ways to do things. It's definitely worth your time. I ramble on. I'm sorry. I just wanted to throw that in there because what Kayvon said reminded me of that.
That's very important because I think it's important to innovate rather than to imitate.
Yeah, and I think it would make it's like that is the it's so big right now. Like marketing, there's so many new people, especially since COVID-19. So many the influx of new people, and there's always been a churn rate. There's always been an influx of new people, but now more than ever, it's huge. But everyone is looking for that easy way to get in and make something happen. They're not trying to learn these disciplines of like creativity and like things like that. So it's, I don't know.
Yeah. Or strategic planning. I think, there's sort of this influx to make more bucks. And they all think they're going to push that easy button that we talked about before.
I love it.
It's
okay.
It's the wiring, so don't worry. It won't affect. It's not contagious.
I tell you, okay. So I wrote these down for you guys. The 3 things I love right now about podcasting, just from these last 50 episodes. I love that podcasting is kind of a long game marketing strategy. Mm-hmm. It's really not a short game kind of thing. I mean, you really need to plan for about a year to get something out there solid, substantial. It's a long game strategy. It's almost like having a little television show or a little radio show, and just like the content builds upon itself, and you have to use it to sponsor yourself and your own stuff you have out there, right? So I love the long game marketing aspect of it. I love that. I love that it attracts higher paying customers, right? It does. I mean, there's a certain segment of people who listen to podcasts. It's a little different than the people who listen to watch YouTube, or it's just a little different. It attracts a higher paying customer. So that's awesome.
Isn't it? It's. I think somebody, I can't remember what the figure was. Or it was, the average household income was 110,000 or higher, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe but it is definitely an upper income.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And then the last one I would say, and there's a lot of things I love, but these are the three off the top of my head that right now that are really kind of like resonating with me. It's trendy right now. Podcasts are very there's a trend factor. So whenever I see a trend, I mean, there's always money there. Like there's always money and opportunity when there's a trend. Just like those damn fidget spinners, like a couple years back. You guys remember those? Someone got in and just made a ton of
something
money
you just
off
said
of those
is
things.
got my attention because, well, fidget spinner is a good example. I don't think that's a trend. Let's call that, I don't know, a fad.
Fad.
But but a trend is something that, is happening and it's keep going on. I don't know if these definitions are accurate, but I'm making them to make a point because the new shiny object thing these days is the Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And I have heard this more than once that podcasting is dead. It's Clubhouse. But guess what? I have heard the same thing about newsletters. Email marketing is dead. It's all about blogging. Then the blogging is dead. It's all about podcasting or something. Yeah, if something works and people make a connection with it, yes, John, it makes full circle. Yeah,
History repeats itself.
So we are going to talk about podcasting, knowing that podcasting is not dead. It's kind of like rock and roll, and it's not going anywhere either.
But video killed the radio star. Remember that?
Yes. And a little bit of a trivia. That was the very first video they ever played on MTV. Yes.
Yeah.
The beauty of this, from my standpoint, podcasting is a great way to create content. And if you look at it as a strategy of, if I create written content, video content, it's so easy to then bring it full circle and make sure you create written content and just fill the whole void. It's a great SEO strategy to have a podcast as part of that whole overall thing. And that, to me, that's the best part of it.
Get those transcripts from your podcast.
Yeah, it's a great way to create content overall.
Yeah, and people should remember that, like, when you create a podcast, I mean, you are creating an asset for your business. So, I mean, this can be, packaged any way you like. I don't know if I've probably mentioned this a million times already, because I just love patting myself on the back. But, like the podcast I did before this one, like, I packaged that thing up and sold it. I sold licensing rights to it. I did 100 episodes, packaged it up, sold it with licensing rights. Use the videos because I was recording the videos also. Use those as OTO1. That was converting at like 31%.
Wow.
OTO1. So we're talking about an asset that made thousands of dollars after I'd already used it for like 7 or 8 months to produce topical awareness or, just top of mind awareness for my business. So it was, I guess, like the point is it's an asset. I mean, you can use it for a while. If you're not getting the traction you want from it, or you feel like you just don't got time to do it anymore, you can always just like, let me just package this up and sell it as an asset.
Well, you're curating your own content, which is amazing. And you just aggregate what you have into a different form.
Yeah. On that note, because as you said, it's content creation. It's your own content. It's something that you can bring traffic to. It's something that you can sell. Just like any other product or marketing activity, having clarity on who is this podcast for, as in the audience, is very clear. I mentioned to you guys that I work with this company called Podcake, and the starting point in podcake.com. Take a look.
I'm doing that.
Or just send me a direct message. I would be happy to have a conversation with you. But what I was going to say, the very starting point on podcast development in their process is creating what they call a listener profile. And it has all of the normal things, as in when we define a target market, audience, avatar, all of that, as well as some psychographics, demographics of coming from other sources. So it is the most important element to know what our listener profile is, who's the audience, how they think, and what are the related material or interests or other shows that the same kind of group of audience they also consume. So starting with a listener profile, I think it would be a great starting point.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Agree. Yeah, 100%, man. I love that. It's always so important, and that's my ears kind of perked up when John was talking about the whole RV podcast thing. My ears kind of perked up because I heard that like that niche down segment, and I was like, ooh, that sounds like there might be money there. That makes sense.
It's a winner because these folks. So John's tribe spent a lot of money.
We do spend a lot of money. I mean, it's crazy money how much we spend sometimes. But I got a couple of those. I mean, Ed and I started our group, Local Marketing Strategies. I definitely think that should become a podcast because we've got a unique spin on it. Some of my own stuff is pretty unique. I love the idea of doing something with RVing because it's a passion project of mine, and what better way to do that than through video and podcasting and talk to, bring on other guests who experience the same lifestyle as I do in doing it. And I really made it part of my business. I spent a lot of time figuring out how I could work successfully on the road. And I think there's a lot of people who want to know that.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, I'm glad you mentioned, Doc, doing something locally because there's so many things I'm running into. Like I said, business succession planning is one. I mean, I could run off a whole bunch of things, but it's amazing how many local business owners need these strategies. And it actually is something that, we've got a lot of experience in. So,
yeah. And, same way that hashtag van life has been, popular and successful. Yeah. Hashtag RV life. And guess what? By observing and studying that hashtag and everything around van life, many of it can be replicated for RV life. It could be products, it could be blog posts, it could be, as you said, content in form of podcast and that sort of thing. So it is definitely a very specific listener profile that you can start talking to from so many directions.
Yeah, my best is like 2 vans, but exactly.
Hashtag van life.
Yeah, double van life. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry. Oh, he's choking now. All right. No, but that's true. The whole van life thing came into play, and I mean, we've even got a place here local to us that brings in all kinds of. They're like a Japanese importer of old vehicles. That's become a big thing now, and they're bringing in all these old campers from Japan. It's so cool. I mean, to see people reconverting them and making them livable and making it part of their lifestyle. Like business is part of our lifestyle, really, too.
So when it comes to podcasts, what are the advantages of a podcast as opposed to, say, video or blog posts or your TikToks or your reels?
So for one thing, when you're driving your van, you can consume it.
Correct.
Right?
Or if you're running,
you can listen to it, but you can't watch TikTok videos or video.
Or commuting or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's a smaller footprint. This is a smaller footprint with a podcast. It's audio. I mean, now me, like I do the video and the audio just because I know I've made money with the video before. So like I cannot, like I have no use for the video right now of One Step Away, but I'm still recording the videos. I'm going to do something with them. So like, but yeah, if you don't do the video, it's a smaller footprint. It's just a little audio. So.
Well, and when it comes to the bandwidth that's required to consume with that smaller footprint, somebody who's consuming an audio only podcast, it's a lot easier for them to do, as well as if they're downloading your podcast in audio form as opposed to downloading the so-called video podcast, it's going to take up a lot less room on their phones.
Yeah, and if you ever want to use clips for courses or whatever, then you've got all versions of, you got video and audio. But, one of the things that I think most people don't think clearly about when they start a podcast is a great way to meet new JV partners, to bring people on and interview them, get a chance to really interact, and at the end say, hey, maybe we should do something together. Because one of my friends, John Corcoran, introduced me to that many, many years ago, and John has a really successful podcast, and that's one of the ways that we kind of started to mingle a little bit.
I think the mindset's different too.
Yeah.
Like, as far as like when someone's listening to your podcast, it's different, man. Like if you're on YouTube watching a video, your mind's a little frazzled. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes do you find it a little hard to be on YouTube and watch like a 30-minute video
Yes.
or something like that without like looking at the side and looking at the thumbnails of some of the other videos and kind of like other things? But like I know somebody was saying like you can listen to a podcast in your car. You're in a different, more like focused mind. So I think it produces stronger audience.
Yeah, it's also great for multitasking. Because let's say many times when I'm doing the dishes or cooking or things like that, I have my headphones on and I'm listening to a podcast or audiobook, but podcast, it's a conversation that's going. So because of what just Cam said, that the chances of less distractions means deeper, better connection with the audience through your voice when you're speaking to them. They have more of their attention given to you and your message.
Maybe.
Right.
The only reason I say maybe is because Rich Sheffrin gave a great example the other day. Was it last week? You were on that broadcast, I think, Kayvon. Where he talked about how if he listens to audio only, he's easily distracted and doing other things, the so-called multitasking. But if he is involved, like that would be like an example of a phone call. But if he's on a Zoom call, he's looking at the person and he's forced to pay attention because he wants to maintain the eye contact.
Yes.
And have that. So
well, he was talking about the live conversation, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm talking about like consuming content. So we are comparing, do you want to read something, do you want to listen to something, or do you want to watch something, right? And the chances of distraction. And speaking of distraction, I started listening to audiobooks and podcasts on higher speed because I naturally have to pay attention to what's being said. Or I lose track of it, because if it's going in a normal speed, my mind has more chances of start to think about other things and go around and scroll, get distracted, and all of that. But when it's fast and it's going like that, then I have to stay with it.
Well, you maximize your time too, don't you? You maximize your time doing it that way. Yeah.
And sometimes it's better than just listening to music to actually hear a voice of somebody actually describing valuable information.
Yeah. So I got a couple of comments to stuff you brought up. So the one thing that I love about having in two formats, having the video and the podcast, is that so many times, we don't know who we're interacting with or who we're listening to. And sometimes it's nice for people to be really able to go to an actual video and see you too. So I think having two formats is really good. I love what you said about the listening to podcasts at high speed. It's kind of like speed reading. So when you first look at speed reading is not to get all the information at one period of time, but it's to skim off what you need each time you read it. So you may actually end up reading things multiple times. And I think listening to the audios faster is that same principle at work, that you're just kind of pulling out the bits that you need as opposed to really listening to the whole thing.
Yes.
And each time you go and read something, and we see this all the time, right? You ever go and you watch a movie for the 8th time and you go, man, I didn't notice that the first time I watched the movie. We all pull out that unique little bit of information. We didn't need to know it the first time we watched the movie, but the 8th time we watched the movie was the charm that we really needed to. We need to really see that other little bit of information to make it.
That's a real good point.
Gel together.
It's like that experiment. Did you see the gorilla?
How's the experiment? I've never heard of this experiment. Tell us about it, Kayvon.
No, seriously?
I have not heard of it.
But please tell it.
Or maybe I shouldn't, because I want you to look on YouTube for it and go through it. So
I'm gonna go through it, man. And then next time we'll have something to talk about.
Yeah, have you seen the gorilla? And you'll see two groups of people, white shirts and black shirts with a ball. And that's a very interesting experiment. When you watch it next time, then we can talk about it.
Yes.
And
right, I'll check that out, man.
And you mentioned speed reading, John.
Yes.
So this is more on a podcast consumption part rather than development. So we are overwhelmed with so many, so much information and books and all of that all the time. And I don't have time to read all of the books, but many of them on a skim level, I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So one of the tricks that I do is if there's a book that I want to know more about or make a decision, do I want to invest 5, 6, 10 hours to listen to the whole book or not? I go and find an interview with the author about that book because they're there to promote their book. And usually in like an hour, 90 minutes, 45 minutes, they give you the gist of the book, the most important parts of it, the concept of it. And I really want to get into it. I listen to his interviews or her interviews with 2 or 3 different podcasts because I know the way that they approach a concept, the interviewer, the way that they ask the questions brings up different answers. So that's one of my hacks in information consumption when it comes to a new topic or a new book, to just listen to an interview and enjoy a conversation while learning.
That's really great. Go ahead, Doc.
It's interesting to see how the interviews will vary too, because John Lee Dumas has got a book out, and he's doing this virtual book tour from podcast to podcast, and from different clubhouse rooms. And I thought that was very interesting to hear how the interviews produced a lot of different information depending on who the interviewer was and what questions they asked.
Yes.
And I bought his book, or pre-ordered the book, based on the fact that there was a second interview that I had heard, which was far better than the first one.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'll tell you what,
Yes.
I think I do the same thing with movies. I just watch about 5 trailers and I'm good. I don't need to watch the movie. I'll just watch about 5 trailers, and it's like I watched 5 movies in like a fraction of the time.
And the best parts are in the trailers.
That's it, man. That's it. You guys go ahead, John.
No, I gotta say, it's funny you should say that. I find I'm watching the trailers a lot more for movies, because I don't know if you guys are feeling the same way as I am. I mean, here we are, COVID. We go watch a movie on Netflix or something, or Amazon that's new and out, and some of them are really, really good, and then others have like kind of endings that leave you hollow, or bits and parts that you just go, why would I want to watch? I mean, I thought this was going to be good entertainment. It saves you a lot of time too.
Yeah, let's watch the trailer, man.
In every way. I mean, it saves you time on the movie, on the book, on the podcast. I mean, it really does save you a lot of time. I think speed reading is one of the best things you can do, because
man,
all this other stuff makes sense.
Hey, listen, I was on the exercise bike for like 45 minutes the other day, and I'm not kidding you. I watched 45 minutes of movie trailers, right? And I felt like I just went to the movies, and I was good. I didn't need to watch any movies after that. I was cool. I watched everything.
Now here is putting that idea on a steroid. Cam, if you're watching those trailers on YouTube, did you know you can speed it up?
You
can watch the trailers sped up. That's super fast.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good idea, man. You guys want to hear my don't likes? What I don't love about podcasts?
Don't like, and I'll go into the advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah. That sounds great. Just 3, right? Right now, for me, there's a lack of an engagement mechanism, right? With podcasts, there's no real way for your audience to like engage with you, like say a YouTube channel, really easily, really quickly, especially it's just there's no engagement mechanism sturdy in place, and that's frustrating. I don't like the distribution is problematic with podcasts. Like, yes, you can distribute to a lot of different places. However, it's still tricky. It's tricky getting your podcast in front of a lot of eyeballs. I find that you can't just rely on the automated distribution stuff. You got to put your boots on the ground and get it in front of people. Mm-hmm. That can be problematic when it comes to scaling. And then the third thing is, I find personally that podcast is a bad central focus for a new business. It's a good like side thing as like a way to promote your business. But if you're in 2021, you're like, yeah, man, I want to start a new online business. I think it's going to be a podcast. Like, I don't think that's a very good central focus for your business if you're trying to make some money this year. Like, you probably need to have another thing lined up and then use the podcast for advertising. So,
yeah, I think it's a mechanism. It's just one tool in your tool belt. You're not gonna
Yeah.
you're not gonna do everything with a screwdriver, especially if you want to hammer in a nail.
Yeah.
can't-
And look, people can be misled, right? Because Pat Flynn, look at Pat Flynn, and we could say Joe Rogan, one of the most successful podcasts in the world, but we could also argue, well, Joe Rogan's got one of the most successful podcasts in the world because of YouTube, right? That's where most people saw Joe Rogan on YouTube. So.
Yeah. And podcasts are great for building authority. I think that's one of the things. It's just like, it's a lot easier than writing a book. Am I right, Kayvon?
Oh, yes.
To establish
talking is always easier than writing.
Yeah. And so you can create content very quickly. The problem is it's very easy to create this content. It also creates a very low barrier to entry. So everybody and his kid brother now has a podcast. And so, but what's fascinating is the vast majority of podcasts have only 3 to 4 episodes and then people stop.
Yes.
Right.
So the landscape is actually pretty wide open. If you're consistent.
Yeah, well, I like what Michael Masterson said about that sort of thing. He says he loves obstacles because that's where he leaves the competition behind.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the people who do 3 or 5 episodes and they give up, awesome. We keep going because the contrast is now bigger too. And I liked it because this conversation of what's that?
No, I was getting ready to say something, and I realized I was actually interrupting you. So I just wanted to say I was sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. So on the business side of it, growing a podcast, there are 3 ways that we can grow a podcast, and you have to kind of go in order. So the 3 ways are: 1, take advantage of your network; number 2, guests and influencers; and number 3, then paid media. And the order is important because with notifying your network, first of all, people on your own email list, your social channels, or friends and family, those are the people that, because they know you, they will come and they will listen to it. And at the same time, those are the people that they can leave you a solid review, which helps a lot with the growth of it. Then on the second part, being a guest or bringing guests. So either be a guest or be a host. Appearing on other podcasts brings people to your own podcast. That's you going out like a book tour. So you're doing a podcast tour on podcasts and clubhouses, and bringing guests to your podcast. Now, there is this misconception that we think a big name celebrity is going to bring in a lot of listeners. And in practice, the opposite of that has been true, because you think somebody who is very famous is going to bring a lot of traffic, but it all depends on how much they're going to promote to their network. And usually very famous people don't do that. The best guests are the people who are very much closer to your audience, or maybe even they are and is in the same profile of your own audience.
Sure.
Because it makes a higher quality conversation, makes it a more enjoyable experience for guest, host, and the listener, and all of that. And when these 2 things are happening, then yes, paid media with ads and that sort of thing to bring people to specific topics. So, well, like what Kam was saying, when we record the video as well, that could be a piece of content that goes out there and bring people back to the podcast because, hey, this is something that I want to share with you. This is some secret, or 3 things that I like or dislike. And to learn more of these things, I share all of them on my podcast. Come join, and that sort of thing. So notify your network, guests and influencers, number 2, and 3, paid media. The 3 main ways that we can grow a podcast.
Right. I think there's one other one that people really miss out on a lot. And that is, we had on one of our summits way back, and summits make a great way to make podcasts. If you could split up a summit, we did that one year. But the one of our guests was a big podcaster at the time, and she was also starting to do some summits. And she actually took and created Kindle books out of the each segment, which was really pretty cool. And it's all, the magic really is looking at all the different places you can syndicate to, and just trying to take the best possible advantage of it. and there's no question that Amazon would be a great place to syndicate to. But not taking advantage of the video portion and putting it on YouTube. There's just so many different places that you can really put things if you just think it through and plan it before you set out and put it in place. It's kind of like an analogy that came up today. Ed and I were talking about SEO, and this kind of sort of fits in the gap a little bit because there's so many different ways that people do it, but they don't do it quite right. It's all about organizing it. If you go into a thrift shop and you see stuff strewn about all over the place, and you go into REI and everything is neat, put in its place, all nicely categorized, there's differences in the way you approach it, but having a strategy in place before you start it is always a good thing.
Yes, definitely.
It's interesting.
No doubt, man.
In terms of strategy, those people who want to monetize their podcasts, I always find it very fascinating. I listened this morning to a new podcast that I had never heard of before, but there was an interview with a couple of reporters from former regular news outlets who had started their own agency, their own news service, and they call themselves the Punch Bowl. And the Punch Bowl was what the Secret Service referred to as Capitol Hill, the Punch Bowl. And so I was looking at this thing, and I listened to it, and they have a very interesting strategy, which is they created a podcast. The podcast feeds into their news service, and the podcast is free. The news service is $30 a month or $300 for the year, and they give you morning, noon, and afternoon. So the news junkies and the lobbyists and others will pay them $300 a year for their news service. But I love the picture of this thing. It was the Daily Punch.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
But what's really interesting to me about the Daily Punch is that they also created this incredibly engaging graphic, which would catch your attention as you're scrolling through podcasts. And I think, creating that thumbnail, or what do you call it? Your visual cam. I know there's a name for it.
Artwork.
The artwork, whatever it is for the podcast. That's an art.
Yeah, the aesthetic.
Yeah, it's the aesthetic of it. And it's like, and people like to see faces. To a great extent. I mean, in this case of the Punch Bowl, there's no face there, but the contrast between the purple and black and seeing the Capitol Dome upside down filled with punch, it does, create a little pattern interrupt for you.
A scripted picture.
It's cool.
We would say.
Very cool.
But
yeah, I know it seems kind of weird, guys, that I come to the podcast or I come to the show with some don't love it's. And I'm just the kind of person, I will always try to beat things up to see what the cons are, because I think it was Kayvon or Doc, you guys, one of you were saying, there are obstacles to be overcome, and obstacles give you an advantage if you can deal with them where other people cannot. And I always see that as an advantage, what do I not like about this? And I would bring it to a show like this so other people can maybe capitalize on it. But right now, currently 50 episodes in, those are a few of my things that I don't love, that I am struggling to overcome some of them. I think that there's definitely answers out there. But yeah, I think the lack of engagement mechanism is a big one, and the distribution.
On that, I think I could be wrong, but I think if you develop your podcast with Anchor, it gives you this option that people can leave you their questions in the form of a voice message.
They can.
Yeah, and you can play it on the podcast and reply to it, and kind of works like the comments, I guess.
It is awesome. And I had my last podcast was done through Anchor, and you're absolutely right. It's great. The problem is it kind of ties into distribution, right? Not everyone is listening to your podcast on Anchor. Anchor's ran through Spotify. Some people are listening to your podcast on iTunes or Apple Podcasts now. Some people are listening to it on Chrome.
Doesn't Anchor upload it to everywhere for you?
Sorry, what'd you say? I didn't hear you.
Doesn't Anchor upload it to every other platform for you?
Yeah, they do. But the voicemail aspect that you're talking about, if someone's listening to your podcast on Apple Podcasts, they're not seeing that voicemail thing, or if they're listening to it on Spotify, they're not seeing a way to engage with you on Spotify. So it's the idea, like if you go watch a YouTube channel, I mean, boom, every video's got a comment section. So it's, that engagement is powerful. And I think that is an obstacle that podcasts are, still struggling to overcome a little bit. So
yeah. And on the engagement part, I'd like to know, because this was something that I wanted to ask all of you. What are your thoughts or opinions on the CTA at the end of an episode? What do you think makes a good CTA? What doesn't? For not only engagement, but also growing the podcast, maybe even monetizing it, that sort of thing.
Sign up for my checklist of 10 ways that you can become a successful online entrepreneur, or whatever it is.
I thought you were going to take that in a whole other direction, Doc.
No. 10 days, please your lover. 10 ways. 10 ways in 10 days. Was that the direction?
Yeah, man. Hey, you know what, man?
I'm bringing sexy back. Yeah.
Yeah, bring sexy back. The last one I did was I called to action to a free thing, and I took Sam Crowley's podcasting workshop, and was talking to him a lot about funnels and just how he goes about his monetization and stuff, and he's saying it's better to go to a paid thing. So it's better to call to action to a paid thing from your podcast, which made a lot of sense to me. With one step away, I'm throwing people at a paid thing. I'm call to action to a paid thing. Now, I sponsor myself in the beginning before I do the episode, and I sponsor myself at the end as well. Both times quick. And that's a 10-minute episode, and I'll sponsor twice in there. And that works pretty good for me, but it's fairly hard to track. So it's, unless you give people a coupon code. Go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say the Daily Punch, they're basically 10-minute podcasts, and not only they sponsor themselves at the beginning, themselves at the end, and twice they're sponsored by AT&T, which is amazing.
That's a nice sponsorship.
That all into an 11 podcast.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's nice. Where does the AT&T sponsorship happen? Is it like in the middle?
It happens at the very beginning, and it happens in the middle. Yeah. So nice. The bumper is it's AT&T and the Punch Bowl. Then they go to somewhere in the middle is AT&T, and then the sponsorship comes again, Punch Bowl towards the end, to get signups. And I was so surprised. I've never seen that before, where the call to action is actually sign up for our news service, sign up for our website. Basically, is what it is.
You know what, man? You guys just made me think of something. Yeah. Dang it, man. This is awesome. I just thought of something just now, man. Like, because it's hard to track. It's because of these elevated minds that I'm around right now. These three beautiful brains that I'm around right now, they're elevating me to another level with ideas is what's happening.
And they deliver every time.
I even think I got solutions to your other problems, but
I want to hear what you have to say. Anybody who's got a solution to my problem, I want to hear about it.
I've got problems for your solutions.
I just thought of, look, these podcasts are difficult to track. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we can track them with coupons by offering people coupons. Hey, if you listen to this episode, when you sign up over here to my thing,
sure,
type in this coupon code. I'll give you a $2 discount or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start doing that for my podcast. Like when I promote my thing, simple little $1, $2 discount. That way I'll know, I'll be able to track what's happening, what traffic is going from the actual podcast.
It's great. Yeah. It's almost like using Twilio, for ads where you can track the phone number that's coming in. So the coupon code could be my thing. Yeah. Using the coupon code, my thing.
Because that's
another thought
challenge
that I had when you guys were talking about that is, going with this strategy of preeminence, people who come to the podcast as a guest, what can we do to make this something that they really want to be on? From the podcast that guests say, hey, that podcast is the one that you want to be on because it's good for your business. Because at the end of the day, we are giving them an opportunity and a platform to promote themselves or a book or something. And one idea is move their promotion instead of the end of the podcast to the middle of it.
Yep.
Give them an opportunity to, because not everybody listens to the end of it. So give them an opportunity, maybe 2 times, similar to the AT&T thing, to talk about what they have, to promote it, and have give people a way to follow up with them or get what they have. So just moving things around, it could make a big difference.
Well, and announcing at the beginning of the podcast. And if you stay to the very end of the podcast, we'll be giving you something very special that you should take advantage of. Something like that.
Yeah, nice little teaser there. Nice little teaser.
Leave that little cliffhanger.
I love it. I love that. What were you going to say, John? What were some of the ideas you were thinking of?
Well, I was going to go back. Let me go back to what I thought my end call to action was going to be for my podcast. So my end call to action for my podcast, I was thinking about a very inexpensive membership, maybe something like, under, maybe even just $1, under $5, somewhere in there, just very, very inexpensive, that had enhanced information on different topics that we've been talking about on the show.
I'm thinking a trial too, that you offer a trial at the end.
Yeah, you could do that. You could easily do that. So a couple things I thought about on your side of things, so remind me again, I'm going to ask you, what were the three dislikes you had? Because I know I had solutions.
Yeah, so a lack of an engagement mechanism consistently for podcasts. Distribution is problematic as far as there's a lot of places you can get your podcast to, but it doesn't always translate to people listening to your podcast. So distribution is problematic, and it ends up with you having a lot of boots on the ground. And then the third one was podcasts are kind of a bad central focus for a new business. If you got an existing business, man, they make a lot of sense. But if you got a new business, don't try to make the podcast a business. It's not a very good central focus for a business.
Right. And then you also were saying getting people to interact with you. So interact with you isn't too bad. I think it would be pretty easy if you did it with something like this. If you did your podcast in StreamYard or one of these where you could get people to interact with you.
There's a comment section. Like this is on YouTube. People can't.
Comment section. You can bring up the comments and read them and that. I've seen people do them on Zoom and have them call in for their questions. I've seen people run them that way. But I think those all kind of go into a little bit of a longer show. You got to have a little longer show format, I think, than 10 minutes to make that really pay off or be a good strategy. I think a lot of that interaction depends on how long you want your show to be. Well,
and you can vary your format. So the majority of your shows could be 10 minutes or 12 or whatever it is, and then just do a special episode. Like I know our mutual friend, Sam Crowley, that's what he does. He'll occasionally have a guest in and he'll do an hour-long interview.
Yeah, so
or you can have an episode dedicated to Q&A.
Yeah,
Q&A. Sure.
Another thing I was thinking of, and I don't know why you couldn't do this. One of the things that we do a lot is syndicate out to Web 2 sites, use IFTTT to syndicate out. That would certainly get more interest to your podcast. I can't see why you couldn't just syndicate that out using something like that.
How would you do that? How would you syndicate it out to those sites?
That's probably more of a conversation than we can get in on the show.
Where was the destination? Okay. Syndicated to what?
Syndicated to different Web 2 properties.
Sites.
Yeah, so that it gets to people get eyeballs on it. But it's really just a matter of getting it out to places like Facebook and different.
Don't forget Twitter.
Through a wheel.
Making a
comeback. One of my most successful strategies so far has been to put out a weekly episode guide for my podcast, and it basically gives the most recent 5 episodes.
That's cool.
And then I'll wrap it in an article, and I'll put a little cover on it. But it's a PDF and it's shareable, so people can share it to their friends, whatever. And it's been pretty nice for it. It pulls up numbers on the podcast, so that's been a pretty nice little strategy. Not super scalable though.
Well, I love it that it's a PDF because they have to open the PDF and download it. So there's some clicking, there's some intention involved in getting them actively participating.
And going back to what I said before, if you were doing that regularly, and you probably wouldn't just do single episodes, but if you did multiple episodes, you could easily do a Kindle on that and put it in and talk about the different episodes that you put together. Hey, if you like this, here's the last 5 episodes I did. Hey, not only that, here's the next 5 episodes. you can add all that stuff in really easily to stuff like
Yeah,
get
with
it
a
up
little
on
bit of
Audible.
planning of having a theme or series for a bunch of different episodes on a certain topic, then you got yourself a Kindle book.
Sure.
Yeah, get it up on Audible. Get it up on Audible, man. It's freaking Audible, man. People are loving these audiobooks right now. I knew these audiobooks were going to be huge, right? I'm just going to pat myself on the back again because I knew these damn audiobooks were going to be huge.
Always
A
have.
long time ago, I knew it, man. I knew.
Yeah.
I remember. I'm not going to get into it. I knew it, though, man. I knew it.
Back in the 1880s, I knew audiobooks would be great.
Yeah.
I just knew it.
What's
know,
crazy how Amazon has dominated it. It's crazy how Amazon has just like
By acquisition,
dominated the audiobooks.
they bought Audible. That's by acquisition. So that's how a
I
lot
know.
of big companies do it. They'll buy a property like an Audible.
Like Spotify bought Anchor.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
Yeah, well, at the same time, Amazon and Audible is more of a US market. The rest of the world, when it comes to audiobook and that sort of thing, there's still other platforms and competition. So it would be
Ooh,
good to
that's
find out
interesting.
when you talk about distribution,
Mm-hmm.
thinking globally and not just the North American market, especially for the audiobooks.
That's a good point, man.
What's the dominant distribution methodology for audiobooks? I don't know, in Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it's Audible.
I doubt it is too. And it's funny you should say that because I was having a conversation with a guy here
That's
who's
interesting.
very, from a European country, and he was saying to me, "We don't watch YouTube. We don't watch YouTube. I mean, we sort of watch YouTube, but we don't watch YouTube. If it's real and it's something we want, it's on TV." And so we had been looking at different ways to, put things on TV through Roku and likewise, and be able to distribute that way too. So I mean, there's just so many methods of distribution right now.
How was that challenging for you to figure out how to put a channel on Roku?
We'll talk about that sometime.
Yeah, because I was looking into that. A while back. It's probably off topic, but
somebody did that, and it was enough to get me looking. And I saw other people who did that, and then all of a sudden I bumped into a way to do that. And so
I don't know what that is. What is Roku?
So Roku is, how they got the Roku set-top boxes?
No, man, just make them look it up, man. Just write it down, Kayvon. Just look it up, bro.
Well, anyway, so Roku is a set-top box, and just like Amazon's got their own set-top box, Roku has one. The only beauty of Roku is it's in, I think, 80 different countries, and so you get the benefit of people listening to you in 80 different countries. And so I found one of these stations, and I actually got two. I got one. I figure I'm going to do one that's kind of lifestyle oriented and one that's more business oriented, because it kind of fits both sides of my brain and covers, all the different projects I have and people that could be content producers for it. And so it's just another avenue, but it's related to podcasting because, TV, podcasting, video, they all have their relationship. They're all related together. They all are additive.
Take it for sure.
Technologies, synergistic technologies, I should say.
Yeah, I love it, man.
We here in the marketing happy hour, we put the sin in synergism. So
yeah, no doubt.
There's no doubt about that. I didn't even get a chance to share my lovely infographic. I wanted to do that, but there it is. Oh, yay! I love this stuff.
Ooh, nice.
I'm playing with StreamYard, but I love the loyal, affluent, and educated. That just seems to be one of the best things. So if you're looking for an audience who is able to pay you, it's probably a good idea to consider podcasting.
Hey, go back there a second. So one other thing that really caught my mind is it's kind of a relatively equal group of viewers. It's relatively 50-50. It's a little less women, 45%, but I'm surprised at how equal that is.
Here's a fun
surprising because YouTube is mostly male dominated.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I think it's mostly because of the mechanical stuff. Everybody's going to try to fix their car or their refrigerator or dishwasher.
Could be. I don't know. But yeah, most of the viewers on YouTube are male. Could be the gaming too.
Yeah. Well, the gaming, it's interesting to see how all these things break down. I was looking at all the stats on podcasts. A fun little fact for you, in terms of per capita consumption of podcasts, South Korea leads with 58% of all individuals listening to podcasts.
Wow.
Wow. I wonder where they're listening to that.
You're going to be good on a podcast.
Do you know which nation is the most connected to internet nation?
I think high speed is definitely South Korea.
I was going to say Estonia. I don't know why I'm thinking Estonia.
Canada.
Canada?
Wow.
Per capita, we are the
Canada.
most connected to internet nation.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
Canada. Do they use AT&T
awesome.
or Bell Canada? Bell Canada doesn't
It
exist.
used to be AT&T here. Then it became Rogers. Then to
Oh, interesting.
different things. Yeah.
Hey, Roger, that. We're actually at the top of the hour. We've gone past slightly.
Yeah. There we go.
Man,
This
I
is-
didn't even get to ask Kayvon if he has any Bigfoot stories. He's from Canada, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
That's
My
my
fir-
nickname.
My 13-year-old believes that Bigfoot is in the Washington State area and not in British Columbia. So
I don't know. They found
I'll have
in
to
New
figure that one out.
When during the Winter Olympics in 2010, one of the mascots was a Bigfoot, and it was a big hairy smile with a little thing here, and it was called Kwachi. And
Nice.
at the same time, during the same time, I used to have one of these, and happy guy, big. So my nickname during the 2010s were Kwachi.
Hey, so if all of you out there would like to join us again in terms of coming back to the Marketing Happy Hour, as well as get the comments by Kwachi, tune in again next week at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I don't even remember anymore. Probably it's 2 p.m. 1 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. I've gotten with all these time changes out. We hope that we've gotten something out of this. If you have any questions or comments, you can put it down below in the comments section, because after all, this is on YouTube, this is in Facebook, on personal profiles, professional profiles, and of course, at our site, our Facebook fan page, which is The Marketing Happy Hour. How can you beat that? It actually has the same name. So we'll be back next week. See ya.
See you guys.
That's a great CTA.
Have a great
Bye.
one.
Come back for the